The apartheid is a more devastating legal structure than even the Jim Crow South.
When we talk about Israel as an apartheid state, even though it's not exactly like South Africa, it neatly falls under the legal definition of the crime of apartheid, which is a very serious crime.
Whoa. That's a loaded term, actually. I wanted to go through it, but the International Criminal Court's definition of the crime of apartheid, Article 7 of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court defines crimes against humanity as, for the purpose of the statute, crimes against humanity means any of the following acts when committed as a widespread or systematic attack directed against any civilian population with knowledge of the attack, murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, and forcible transfer of population, imprisonment, or other severe deprivation of physical liberty in violation of fundamental rules of international law, torture, rape or sexual slavery, enforced prostitution, persecution against any identifiable group collectively on political, racial, national, ethnic, cultural, or religious gender as defined in paragraph 3, or on other grounds that are universally recognized as impermissible under international law, enforced disappearance of persons, the crime of apartheid. Ooh, ding, ding, ding. Later in Article 7, the crime of apartheid is defined as means inhumane acts of a character similar to those referred to in paragraph 1 committed in the context of institutionalized regime of systematic oppression and domination by one racial group over any other racial group or groups committed with the intention of maintaining that regime. For the purpose of the present convention, the term crime of apartheid, which shall include similar policies and practices of racial segregation, denial to a member or members of a racial group or groups that of the right to life and liberty of person, by the infliction upon the members of a racial group or groups of serious bodily harm or mental harm, by infringement of their freedom or dignity, by subjecting them to torture or to cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment.
Would you want a Gaddafi or an Arafat?
ADHD kicks in. Yeah, I don't even feel the need to finish it, but by arbitrary arrest or illegal imprisonment of members of racial group or groups, deliberate imposition of a racial group, living conditions, every single part of this is what's going on in Israel, okay? That is the reason why human rights groups consider what is going on in Israel to be an apartheid, even though they are far too late. They're decades late. And the reason why this consideration, this legal consideration, is not given to or is completely hand-waved away by liberals who want to engage in the soft Zionism is because the resistance against that apartheid is oftentimes going to be violent, sometimes going to be incredibly fucking brutal. And ultimately, when all is said and done and the apartheid regime falls, no one will consider those acts of violence, those acts of resistance to be completely unjustifiable. The greatest example of this is, of course, what Nelson Mandela and the ANC went through in apartheid South Africa.
Or a Castro to be a future president of South Africa.
One of the mistakes which some political analysts make is to think that their enemies should be our enemies. That we can and we will never do. We have our own struggle, which we are conducting. We are grateful to the world for supporting our struggle. But nevertheless, we are an independent organization with its own policy. And the attitude of every country towards, our attitude towards any country is determined by the attitude of that country to our struggle. Yasser Arafat, Colonel Gaddafi, Fidel Castro support our struggle to the hilt. There is no reason whatsoever why we should have any hesitation about hailing their commitment to human rights as they are being demanded in South Africa. Our attitude is based solely on the fact that they fully support the anti-apartheid struggle. They do not support it only in rhetoric. They are placing resources at our disposal for us to win the struggle. That
Terrorist, by the way. Just saying. He was a terrorist. He is a terrorist until 2008. He's on the terror watch list. He's fresh out of prison at this point. Comes to America to push the BDS movement to apply pressure from the American government to end the apartheid in South Africa. After 27 years of being in prison, twice they asked him that they would offer him conditional release as long as those conditions were that he denounced the violence that the ANC, his supporters, were engaging in, and offer assurances that no such violence will exist in the future. Twice he said no and sat and ate the rest of the fucking prison sentence. Twice. Understand that no matter what happens, those who want to defend Israel's unjustifiable acts would find a different way to smear you, but there's no reason to give additional reasons. Okay? That's it. But ultimately, my position is those who fucking only talk about that, those who only talk about the posters and not of the death toll in Gaza are oftentimes unserious and, dare I say, genocide supporting ghouls, okay? Using that as a deflection and as a driving point of contention, of conversation, when 7,000 Palestinians have been ruthlessly slaughtered with our tax dollars, with our bombs, with our go-ahead, American go-ahead, blood on our hands, not recognizing that and hyper-focusing on that distraction is done by cowardly individuals who don't want to fucking openly admit that Israel is an apartheid state and carrying out an ethnic cleansing campaign with our go-ahead. Especially when considering that the most surreal element of this episode is freeing the hostages, serving as the primary moral narrative of a bombing campaign killing 3,000 children, but the guy in charge of the bombing campaign repeatedly ignoring and doing the opposite of what the hostages' families want. Do you understand? Because Hamas might have a different worldview than all of us in this process, one born out of the violence that they were that they've only known, okay? But they're still self-interested, and they tried to appeal to a more humane side that would be theoretically interested in the preservation of the health and safety and security of Israelis that are currently being held captive, not realizing that the hostage negotiator in this process was way more interested in killing the hostage takers and was willing to kill the hostages to get to the hostage takers as well. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in movies. It usually doesn't happen because there's a operating process. There's a standard, an operating protocol that says if you're in a hostage situation, you're supposed to negotiate with the hostage takers. You're not supposed to shoot through the fucking hostages. Now, Israel doesn't do that. They have their own doctrine called the Hannibal doctrine that literally doesn't do that. They do the exact opposite. They're like, oh, you got a hostage? Everyone dies, including the hostages. It's fine. However, when you have 200 civilians that are held hostage, the situation becomes a little bit more dire. You can't really openly advocate to fucking ruthlessly slaughter all of the hostages alongside the Al-Qassam and Islamic Jihad militants that are holding them captive. You can't do that. The Hannibal doctrine was recently revived. That name is revised. That name is old, by the way. Yeah, the Samson option, isn't it? Isn't that what it's called now? Oh, this was awesome. Do you guys know? Okay. I can't get through these paywalls unlike how you can get through the top of the hour ad break paywall by subscribing for $5 or for free. Archive is not working for me. Oh, no, not Samson option. Sorry. Is Israel saying they're going to nuke everybody if Israel's under threat? No, my bad. What is the... I don't know what it's called now. I think I'm talking about... I'm talking about... No, archive today doesn't work. The Hannibal directive is the one that... Let me see. Fuck, maybe I can do that. I'm pressing escape a lot. So this was a funny thing that happened where families of the kidnapped Israelis met Netanyahu and found that Netanyahu had fucking hired a fake family to burst into the meeting and say, Prime Minister, do whatever you want. Kill everybody. Kill as many hostages as you want. Fucking got a fake hostage family member to be like, we support you no matter what you say and do. Which is awesome. So that's not even the only thing I was going to talk about, though. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is apparently that there was analysis conducted by Haaretz as well on things that we've talked about already, specifically on the actions of October 7th and the IDF strategy. No, the Dahia doctrine is not what I'm talking about. That is not a hostage situation. That's when you kill, that's when you purposely engage in asymmetrical warfare on a civilian population and kill a shit ton of civilians by bombing everything. Yes. Hannibal directive is to the military doctrine that if hostages are taken, Hannibal directive, I don't know what it's called now, but the Hannibal directive originally, which they say was discontinued, originally was the military doctrine that if hostages are taken, you have to kill every single person, including the hostages, by whichever force necessary. Here it is. The procedural protocol was a controversial procedure used by the Israeli Defense Forces to prevent capture of Israeli soldiers by enemy forces, introduced in 1986 after a number of abductions of IDF soldiers in Lebanon and subsequent prisoner exchanges. The full text of the directive has never been published, and until 2003, Israel military censorship even forbade any discussion of the subject in the press. The Hannibal directive has at times existed in two different versions. One top secret written version, accessible to only upper echelons of the IDF, and one other oral law version of division commanders and lower levels. In the latter versions, by all means, was often interpreted literally, as in an IDF soldier was better dead than abducted. Get it? By the way, the top of the hour ad break is still happening. I forgot to run it. I'm running it now. Apparently some injuries, burns, shells, and ballistic impacts are similar to tank artillery, and Hamas doesn't have them. I want to fucking read the goddamn article that Haaretz wrote, because the only previous writing on the matter was done by Electronic Intifada, and they're a little bit biased, okay? Not a little bit biased, they're very biased. So I want to hear from a biased source that at least does a lot of objective reporting, and a bias source that favors the Israeli side. And I hear that they covered the same thing. October 7th, Kibbutz Be'eri and other kibbutzim, and the way that they were... this isn't what I'm talking about. This is not it. Anyway. Israel has, with several notable exceptions, adhered to the principle of not negotiating with terrorists, and this especially in hostage situations. Policy led to some notable successes such as Operation Entebbe, but also tragic loss of human life, as is the Ma'alot massacre. In cases where Israeli soldiers were captured and no military solution was found, Israel was forced to negotiate with the captors about an exchange of prisoners. Large parts of Israeli public opinion would not accept simply abandoning captured soldiers to their fate. According to Haaretz reporter Leibovich Dar, the motivation for the directive was the capture of 2 Israeli soldiers during a Hezbollah ambush in South Lebanon in June 1986. Both soldiers presumably died during the attack, and their bodies were returned to Israel in exchange for Hezbollah in 1996. The directive developers were the 3 top officers of the IDF Northern Command: Yossi Peled, the command's operation officer, Colonel Gabi Ashkenazi, and the intelligence officer, Colonel Yaakov Amidror. Oh my God, I'm so fucking... I sound like Eran Marad every time I try to read these names. This article has not been updated. Oh, Haaretz denied it. I've seen this post in a photo that contains blatant lines about the atrocities committed by Hamas on October 7th. It absolutely has no basis in Haaretz reporting, then or since. Oh, God damn it. You guys got hinkled. That's why you kept saying to me that the fucking Haaretz article covered that it was the Hannibal doctrine. Oh, I hate you guys. Oh, God. No, you got fucking dinkle-dicked? God damn it, dude. Stop. We fucking banned his links in the goddamn chat, and you motherfuckers still come in and repeat shit that you read from his Twitter feed. Oh, God, it's so bad. Oh my God, dude. What's next, dude? Is Sean King releasing all the hostages? Is that what we're doing? Pushing Z-ass motherfuckers, dude. How?
That is the position.
Having said that, I think I would be dishonest if I did not express profound disappointment with the answer that Mr. Mandela gave to the previous question, because it suggests a certain degree of amorality. It suggests that what these people do in their own countries, what a Gaddafi does in Libya, what a Castro does in Cuba, is totally irrelevant.
Yeah, famously, post Gaddafi, Libya has been mint, dude. Shit's been so sick. Post Saddam, Iraq, on the up and up, okay? Post Gaddafi, Libya, so sweet. Fucking nice, okay? Fucking sick. Luckily, you can't make you can make an exception for Cuba because it has been devoid of U.S. influence beyond the major blockade. Notice how the one fucking country where they didn't actually succeed in assassinating its political leader after a socialist revolution is doing infinitely better than the other countries where they did do that. That's crazy, man. It's not like Cuba is this fucking incredible, natural resource rich. I mean, there's some natural resource, but like, it's not like it's fucking oil rich, 600 plus attempts on Castro's life. Anyway, Gaddafi was a fucking psycho in many different respects. Okay, don't misunderstand me. The same with Saddam, but in both of those instances, it was these countries are better off while they were in charge under brutal regimes than they are now. He was the president of Africa. Yeah, Gaddafi, the president of Africa. Yes, Gaddafi's politics are incomprehensible.
Even in terms of the issue of human rights, as long as they support the cause of the ANC. I hope that is not what Mr. Mandela meant, and I would hope that he would clarify that issue further.
Mr. Mandela.
And at the same time, want me to be involved in the internal affairs of Libya and Cuba. I refuse to do that. As far as Yasser Arafat is concerned, I explained to Mr. Sigmund that we identify with the PLO because just like ourselves, they are fighting for the right of self-determination.
Bro, the gall of an American right-winger telling a political prisoner who's still on the terrorist watch list at this point, who just came out of a 27-year prison sentence, okay, and is still begging Americans to keep applying pressure on the apartheid South African regime to end it, to be like, hey, why don't you condemn the people that you consider your fucking political allies? Can you denounce Cuba, please? I can't listen to your describe, just abject cruelty in ways that are so deep and personal to me as an American and that I understand to be, at least theoretically, unimaginably wrong, right? The apartheid is a more devastating legal structure than even the Jim Crow South, okay? Basically a complete codification. We here in America at this point understand that was unacceptable. So we know apartheid South Africa is completely unjustifiable. So while you're here telling me your brave struggle against that unjustifiable regime, I will ask you to tell me what you think about Cuba. And if you don't give me a good answer, maybe you should be subjugated and continue to live under an apartheid structure. I don't know. Asking one terrorist to, I guess it's 90s. It was PLO still considered a terror organization at that point? Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess it still is. Palestine Liberation Organization, founded in 1964. United States considers PLO the umbrella organization that includes several constituent groups holding different views on terrorism. At the same time, U.S. policy accepts the elements of the PLO have advocated, carried out, or accepted responsibility for acts of terrorism. PLO chairman Arafat publicly renounced terrorism in December 1988 on behalf of the PLO. The United States considers all PLO groups, including the Al-Fatah Force, Hawari Group, PLF, PLFP, to be bound. Al-Fatah Force 17, Hawari Group, PLF, and the PFLP, Popular Front for Liberation Palestine, are bound by Arafat's renunciation of terrorism. The U.S. PLO dialogue was suspended after the PLO failed to condemn the 30th of May 1990 PLF attack on Israeli beaches. PLF head Abu Abbas left the PLO Executive Committee in September 1991, and his seat was filled by another PLF member. You might be hearing analysts compare Israel's assault on Gaza, the U.S.-led coalition on assault on Mosul to clear ISIS in 2016, 2017, or Fallujah in 2004. I've been in both of these battles for extended periods of time. I've covered their aftermath. It is true that both the battles of Mosul and Fallujah involved an intense bombing campaign, i.e. blow it to pieces, warn civilians to leave, going on the ground. 1. ISIS was in Mosul for 3 years. Hamas has been in Gaza for 30 plus. What Hamas has under Gaza makes what ISIS has under Mosul look like a little mouse maze. 100% true. In Fallujah, civilians were able to flee, many of them did, and lead up to the battle. It was very much a ton of bombs, artillery, whatever the U.S. had at its disposal. Street-to-street soldiers versus armed militants when the U.S. ground forces went in. Civilian death toll, 500 to 800. In Mosul, civilians were unable to flee. ISIS was literally holding them at gunpoint. Mosul civilian death toll was between 9 to 11,000. Hamas is not holding civilians at gunpoint in Gaza. They are trying to flee in the south to follow Israel's evacuation directive, but the south is also being bombed, so there is no safe space. As I write this, the civilian death toll in Gaza is 7,000 plus. What do you think about Will Stansel? I don't know who the fuck this little twink is, okay? I can just tell the twink energy coming from this fucking name. Please, stop giving me, like, weird social democrat twinks from, like, I don't know, Latvia or whatever that made a name for themselves with Ukrainian flags in their bio offering their perspective. I don't know if he's one of those guys or if he's the other kind of twink who's like an American social democrat, armchair urbanist type twink, okay? There's only 2 types of twinks on Twitter that chirp nonstop. It's the armchair urbanist style that's in America that's like, oh, you guys simply don't understand. Joe Biden has actually brought so much prosperity to America, and you're too fucking stupid to recognize because you're just a dead broke boy, okay? And also, why won't those guys who like basically transitioned into, why won't these guys just understand that like your optics and the way that you're talking about Israel is the reason why America is engaging in genocide, and not because like America loves a good genocide and that Israel aligns with our national security interests in the region for fucking 70 plus years. You know, oh God, the American left is really, really doing a bad job. Stop saying armchair urbanist. It's insulting Alan Fisher. No, I love Alan. You guys know that. Alan is one of the only good ones in the urbanist space. Stencil is actually the economy is great guy. Okay, there you go. You forgot like 9 other flavors of Twitter twinks. Come on. No, those are the only interesting ones. There's one that's like Latvian or some shit who constantly posts about Ukraine and is like a sock dem who thinks I suck. Secretly thinks I'm hot, but thinks I suck as well because like he thinks I want Ukraine to be fucking reduced to rubble. And then the other one I don't even know about, but I don't want to. Nico, I think that's what his name is. Maybe I don't fucking know. Anyway, there's too many twinks to take to take into account here. Okay. I was making fun of Stancil. I can't log on to archive, dude. Look, this is what happens, chat. I don't know why it won't let me. I've been trying. Imagine a genocide too brutal for this guy to participate in. Oh, this is... No, guys. I don't think this is what... Your read on this is wrong. The U.S. Marine Corps Lieutenant General James Glynn, dispatched by Pentagon to advise Israel on risks inherent to an invasion of the Gaza Strip, has returned to the U.S. Make no mistake, what is, has, or will unfold in Gaza is purely an Israeli decision. No, you're wrong. I don't think he said that because he thinks it's far too brutal for the Gazans. If you think this fucking animal has any care or consideration for the humanity of Palestinians, you're wrong. The reason why he's washing his hands of the military operation most likely is because the death count on the other direction is going to be devastating. And he doesn't want to be known. He doesn't want to be associated with like a major military fuck up that leads to like, you know, thousands of IDF reservists being fucking blown to bits by IEDs and different kinds of improvised explosive devices and basically just like small arms fire and whatever kind of fucking rockets that they were able to sneak in before the Egyptian tunnels were collapsed. So that is probably the major reason why he's saying, I'm washing my hands of this nonsense. Not that, I don't know. Not that like he's worried about how many Gazans are going to be killed. You don't become a general in the fucking Marine Corps by thinking about the human casualties, especially if they're Arab or Muslim. Look at his words. He said the plan, make no mistake, what is or has or will unfold in Gaza is purely an Israeli decision. What do you mean? He said, I fear that there will be a lot of just IDF soldiers getting killed by other IDF soldiers or even by the Israeli Air Force. Urban warfare, counterinsurgency in urban environments is incredibly, incredibly difficult, okay? Anyway, I can't read this because there's a fucking subscription that I do not have to Haaretz, and I don't foresee myself purchasing one. According to him, only on Monday night and only after the commanders in the field made difficult decisions, including shelling houses and their occupants in order to eliminate the terrorists along with the hostages, did the IDF complete the takeover of the kibbutz. The price was terrible. At least 112 Berry people were killed. Interesting info on ICC. Wait, what the fuck? On Israel, lawyer who applied genocide convention for Bosnia recommends it for Palestinians. The U.S. government has twice vetoed calls for a ceasefire during the current crisis of the UN Security Council. Boyle is a professor of international law at the University of Illinois College of Law. His books include The Bosnian People Charged Genocide, Palestine, Palestinians and International Law, and World Politics, Human Rights, and International Law. He said today, the U.S. government is clearly preventing the UN Security Council from fulfilling its rightful function in declaring a ceasefire by use of the U.S. veto from like 3 days ago. The U.S. government also corrupted the International Criminal Court, which the Palestinians are signed on to, so the ICC is not helping the Palestinians as it's obliged to do. There is another set of legal mechanisms, however. The provisional government for the state of Palestine or some other party to the Genocide Convention should apply that to Israel. That is what I did for Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Palestinians should immediately institute legal proceedings against Israel before the International Court of Justice in The Hague on the basis of the 1948 Genocide Convention, request an emergency hearing by the court, and obtain an order by the court against Israel to cease and desist from committing all acts of genocide against the Palestinians. He also says Israel is not engaging in legitimate self-defense under the UN Charter as it and the U.S. government continuously claim. It is a belligerent occupier under the Fourth Geneva Convention and other relevant legal statutes which Israel falsely claims doesn't apply to it. The U.S. government would seek to squash any order by the ICJ, also called the World Court, at the Security Council. This will require use of the General Assembly's Uniting for Peace Resolution of 1950 in order to have the World Court order turned over to the United Nations General Assembly for enforcement against Israel. The UN General Assembly could also admit Palestine as a full-fledged UN member state. See Boyle's lecture on this, Stopping Zionist Genocide Against the Palestinians. Anyway, neither Mosul nor Fallujah was put under a sword of siege by a nation state like Gaza. There was no deliberate cutting off of aid. We did not hear of doctors having to do amputations without anesthesia on kids, children, 50% burns on not being able to get basic painkillers. In the case of Mosul, when an area bombed and or ground forces went in, forcing the armed group out, civilians were able to flee to safe areas, i.e., they were able to leave the battleground behind. In the case of Gaza, civilians cannot leave the battleground. I mean, I guess all he's saying is that it's significantly worse in Gaza than even Fallujah, and than even Mosul under ISIS control or Al-Qaeda control, doesn't matter. In the case of both Fallujah and Mosul, there was a deliberate escape route for fighters to be able to flee. They were able to squirt out until they ended up in more manageable numbers in terrain that was not as familiar to them, not a Gaza option. Neither Fallujah nor Mosul had the hostage dynamic. The 200-plus hostages are feeling every single one of those bombs, and Israel's at grave risk of killing its own. Israel has killed its own. According to the El Qassam brigades, Israel's killed approximately 50 hostages as of yesterday. We have no reason to believe that at least operating on rationality, operating on the principles of self-interest, Hamas or Al Qassam has no reason to kill their hostages, not on camera, and has every reason to use those hostages to ensure ceasefire, which they've tried to do, which Israel has refused to do. Their leverage. I don't think that they would just kill their leverage for the fun of it. Their only leverage. Their only lifeline, as a matter of fact. So...
I went further, however, to say that the support for Yasser Arafat in his struggle does not mean that the ANC has ever doubted the right of Israel to exist as a state legally.
Fake, bro. Fake. Fake friend. Damn.
We have stood quite openly and firmly for the...
It's not a rare L, chat. This is a normal position to have. It's 1990. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, yes, the emphasis is legally, okay? At this point, there's people still consider the viability of a two-state solution to be serious, okay? And not only that, but also on top of that, like, it is... Everything from this point on is almost entirely Israel's fault. I mean, everything before this is Israel's fault too. Let's be real. They are the power players in the region. But not going to sit there and be like, it's time to cleanse Israel, which wouldn't even be a moral take anyway. It's not. If you misunderstand my position, let me tell you, okay? Anti-Zionism does not mean cleansing the lands of all Jews. Anti-Zionism means ensuring that the Zionist nationalist project is eviscerated and that there can be a single, secular, solitary state with equal rights and representation for all, with a right to return for all Palestinians, with reparations for the Palestinians who have lost their homes, who maybe might not even wish to return, but most will.
The right of that state to exist within secured borders. But, of course, as I said to Mr. Sigmund in Geneva and others.
And what does river to the sea mean? You know exactly what it fucking means. Everything I just mentioned falls under that umbrella, okay? From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free implies that Palestinians will be free to live on that land from the river to the sea. If you look at that and you think, well, that means ethnically cleansing Jews, okay, and then you point to like fucking the 1988 Hamas founding charter, okay, and then you go, well, look, they want to fucking ethnically cleanse Jews from a time when like they literally had no support whatsoever, and assume that this is actually representative of all Palestinians' perspectives when they say from the river to the sea. It's just pure projection. You're saying we need to keep doing ethnic cleansing on our own side so that we can avoid an ethnic cleansing that might happen later down the line.
That we carefully define what we mean by secure borders. We do not mean that Israel has the right to retain the territories they conquered from the Arab world, like the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights, and the West Bank. We don't agree.
Damn, nothing has changed.
With that, those territories should be returned to the Arab people.
Mr. Mandela.
It's kind of fucked up that they went to the Jewish kid. Like, camera pans immediately to the one Jewish kid. Come on, dude. Like, they did him a little dirty.
I also explained to Mr. Sigmund and company that in our organization we have Jews. In fact, Mr. Gaddafi
This is what I talked about.
did not allow us to open our offices in Libya precisely because we had the courage to say to him, we work with the Jews in our organization. And he didn't allow us to open an office until February this year, when he had to accept us as we are. We are not prepared to be swayed by anybody. We have an independent policy which we assert no matter with whom we discuss. The Jewish leader have any doubts about our stand, I am prepared to address them and to allay their concern, because they are a very important community both in South Africa and of course in the States. And I'm prepared to iron out any differences that might exist, but they must know what our stand is. Arafat is a comrade in arms, and we treat him as such. And as I have said, we have many Jews, members of the Jewish community in our struggle, and they have occupied very top positions. But that does not mean to say that the enemies of Israel are our enemies. We refuse to take that position. You can call it being political or a moral question, but for anybody who changes his principles depending on whom he is dealing, that is not a man who can lead a nation.
Ruth First was one of many, many Jewish anti-apartheid activists that were martyred by the South African state.